Hey people, welcome to the channel. I hope everyone is having a great Easter, surrounded by friends, family, loved ones. In this case, replying to a question that I got in the comments below. This is from someone that said, what's that message? Hey Fernando, I like the format that you're doing, interacting more with the public. I would like to know what's the name of that revolver that you show in your videos. I find it very attractive. And yes, sir, yes it is. Well, I've mentioned this before in the channel. I guess it's been a while. This is the MR73 revolver, the Manuran MR73. I've showed it many times in the channel before. It's a French revolver. It is still very much made in France. Last time I talked with a company on a phone call, there was, I believe it was only one gunsmith making these, like the final tuning. I think it was just one guy, and it's just a very small number of these that are currently made. Back in the day, it was originally made in 1972 for the group of intervention of the National Gendarme Forces in France, the GIGN, and it was intended to be a tactical revolver. That's what they wanted. It was very unique in the way that they went about their job. This group, this tactical group, anti-terrorist GIGN group, was founded with the idea of, we don't shoot. If we have to shoot, we only shoot once or twice. More than that means problems with training. It's a skill problem if you have to shoot more than once and twice. I mean, I think it's very attractive, the philosophy of having, it's almost like a more of a knightly way to go about having a tactical group instead of the more spray and pray approach or putting a bunch of rounds down range. I don't know, man, different times, but it's specifically something that was mentioned by the captain that created this anti-terrorist force. It was literally saying these things. We don't shoot. We try not to shoot very hard. If we had to shoot, it's going to be just one or two surgical precision shots. It's going to be one or two of these things, 357 Magnum. More than that means we're not doing our job right. I find that to be quite admirable in terms of a philosophy of use of force. Not only is it that, you also cannot argue with the results. It is, as far as I know, it is the best tactical, like the best tactical group, the best anti-terrorist group in terms of the results. I mean, don't quote me on this, but last time I checked, I think they had the best track record in saving the most amount of people in their interventions. And they've been quite famous for a few of these, specifically the one in which the Air France flight was kidnapped by a bunch of terrorists. The GIGN went in, and the point man was going with his MR73, exactly like this one, an MR73 with the target sights and 6¼ inch barrel, which is this exact same gun. Yeah, that was something. There was even a movie made about it, which I recommend you watch. The Assault, I think it's called. It's not very famous, but it's a movie specifically about how that went down, and they show in detail how the point man went in with his MR73. He shot a couple terrorists, wounded a third one. These guys were armed with Uzis, full automatic Uzis, pistols, I think AK-47, and grenades, and the guy shot a couple of them with 357 Magnum. And well, I think they all survived. Not the terrorists; those did not. But the officers of GIGN, they all survived. The point man was very much wounded. His MR73 was destroyed because it was shot. Right? Something I mention often here in the channel. When you're using this, right, you're putting this center of mass and you're receiving fire. So his gun was destroyed. Manuran actually sent him another one, which I believe he keeps on using for target practice. At least that was the last thing I read about the incident. So it's a very cool story behind it. But what is it that makes these guns special besides the people that have used them in the line of duty? Well, the gun itself is pretty unique. It was designed specifically because the Smith & Wessons, the Colts, whatever it is that they were using at that time when the group was first created was not holding up to the amount of use that they were putting it through. They were shooting Norma, like very hot 357 Magnum, 150 rounds per day, daily training 150 rounds every single day with the revolvers. And things start happening. Either the gun starts suffering different kind of failures. Even, there's so many things. Guns are not really, especially revolvers. Pistols are another thing. For example, if you have your average Glock that you buy for $500, that thing can go 200, 300,000 rounds, and it's probably going to still keep on firing, right? There's always going to be maintenance and parts that break and need to be replaced and whatnot, but the gun itself, the frame, the slide, the barrel, all of those things will hold. In a revolver, the amount of movement and tension and forces involved are a little bit different. You have this, you don't have an aligned chamber integrated into the barrel. That is a big thing to keep in mind, especially with hot ammunition. There's a number of things. Even the stretching itself of the frame can be a concern. And there's going to be people that say, oh, I've shot so many times. Well, it depends. It depends on how big that frame is. It depends on the ammunition that you're shooting. Are you shooting hot lows constantly, thousands and thousands all the time? Or are you not shooting that number of rounds? It does not make sense to worry about such things. And one of the best examples would be your Cadillac of revolvers. You see it all the time in the back there of my videos. The Colt Python 357 Magnum, one of the finest revolvers ever made. But you're doing a fine revolver, and it's specifically intended as a premium revolver, but it is not intended as a service weapon for a tactical force. So even if you have this, which is one of the best revolvers ever made, honestly, there's going to be things. There's going to be, for example, the steel they use. It's going to be high quality stainless steel or carbon steel, depending on the model, but you're not going to make it tool steel extra hard just because there's no point to it. 99.99% of people will simply not shoot it enough to notice a difference. So what you do is get quality steel, you work it, you machine it in the finest way possible, and that's more than good enough. In this case, it was something different. They went with this super hard tool steel for the frame, the barrel, and the cylinder because they wanted this to be the best ever, the toughest ever, the most accurate ever. If it didn't group under 20 millimeters, that's less than an inch, at 25 yards in 15 rounds, it was just not acceptable. It had to be super accurate, super tough. And that's what they did. Why is it that revolvers are not made like that? Because it's too expensive. It's just too expensive. The machining is going to put a lot of damage on the tools, the machines, the bits that you use for cutting the metal. If I need to basically rebuild the machines I'm using every 500 guns, every 200 guns, it's not the same thing as if I have to do that every 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 guns. Depending on what you're looking at specifically, if you're using steel that is that tough, that's going to be a problem. It's going to be more expensive. It's going to be more labor intensive to do it with this kind of steel than with your typical steel used in firearms. There's no point in it because people simply don't shoot that much. These guys did, and these guys said, okay, this is what we need. We basically need like a Smith & Wesson revolver, but make it super strong with the finest materials you can find. I don't care how much it costs. It's going to be the government paying for this, but this is what the group requires. And that's what they did. The Manouran company in France got together and started making the finest revolver, the finest combat revolver ever made. Not only that, it is beautiful, by the way. The dark blue steel is just... And the straw color, gold trigger and hammer, it is all fantastic. It is an extremely fine gun. One of the things that maybe isn't mentioned as much is how short the double action is. It is particularly short. The hammer is still there in case you need to make an extra. This was designed also as a sniper revolver. There's a sniper variety of this gun. Yes, as a sniper revolver. Who even thinks of that? Well, these guys obviously did. So very nice wood. Everything is fantastic in this thing. But it's not only beautiful, it is designed to be that thing. The trigger almost feels like you're shooting a pistol, which is very specific to this kind of gun. I haven't seen that. I mean, the action in my Python is smooth as butter, and single action is great. This one is also fantastic, but that double action pull, clearly intended for someone that is going to be fighting with a gun, right? In a more modern way, or at least in the way in the 70s was considered modern. So extremely reliable, super tough and durable. That does not mean that it doesn't break. Eventually, especially on the small moving parts, it will. But going back to the idea, they want to have a super strong K-frame Smith & Wesson, basically the best they could possibly make, and also adding the adjusting a couple of screws to adjust the trigger pull and the action. It's basically you have two sets of triggers, one to adjust how much force is required, and one adjusting the amount of force required in the action itself, and the other one on the spring on the hammer. So you can tweak with those two up until the point in which you're happy with that, all right? And yeah, it makes for an exquisite, even it has a little screw there to control how much that range you have there. I mean, I don't even mess with this thing, but it is an extremely fine firearm. There's really not that much that compares to it. The Korth revolver, I think, is in terms of the steel, the quality of steel. Korth revolvers made in Germany are kind of like this thing, and maybe there's someone else. But you know what's the difference between Korth and your Manurran revolver? The Manurran revolver was designed to be that cool thing, and it was actually used by those guys. It was required specifically by an anti-terrorist group that is, top of the food chain in terms of how good these guys are, right? And that's the cool story behind the gun, besides, but the Korth also is super durable. Well, and I particularly don't like the looks of the Korth much. There's some designs that are a bit nicer than others. I think this is just beautiful in its elegant simplicity in a very French way. Yeah, you can say whatever you want about the damn French, but god damn it, did they make a beautiful, fantastic revolver. Again, I think it's honestly the best revolver ever made. These are still being made. The company was bought by Beretta. It is going to be a $3,000 revolver, so there's that. I think some people were complaining that the quality was not, maybe in the acquisition something for a while. Lately, I believe it's just as good as it's ever been. It's a great revolver. If you have the money for it, if you want to buy the best ever in terms of, at least the way I see it, this is the way, right? Not in the Mandalorian, but, well, yeah, maybe it is. Maybe it is in the philosophy of, if I'm going to use a gun, I'm going to use just 2 rounds. That's pretty badass. Find firearms in the way in which you just don't see much anymore. I'm just surprised that they're still making them. I'm surprised that Beretta definitely went with a high-end, super quality premium acquisition there, and that's what these things are, even though the pedigree, the bloodline of these is extremely utilitarian for a tactical anti-terrorist French unit. Folks, that's going to be all for now. If you have any questions, if you want to learn more about survival and preparedness specifically, I honestly recommend, as always, my books, Street Survival Skills and Surviving the Economic Collapse, which is based on my experience going through just that in Argentina. Very relevant given how the world is going these days. That's going to be all for now. Have a wonderful Easter. See you on the next video. Take care.